This is question 2 of the AQA Combined Science Chemistry Higher paper from June 2018. And we're looking at the reaction between sodium and chlorine, and more specifically in 2.1, we're considering the electronic structures of sodium and chlorine. And remember, you should be able to draw out or write out the electron configuration for the first 20 elements, taking you all the way up to calcium. So we're looking at similarities and differences. Well, in terms of a difference, sodium being group 1 has 1 electron in its outer shell, chlorine has 7 electrons in its outer shell. So that seems a really clear difference to note down. And you'll get the mark for simply saying the number of electrons is different. If you specify the numbers, they have to be correct, and you would have to say 1 electron for sodium and 7 for chlorine. In terms of the similarities, I'm going to look at the position once again on the periodic table, and I can see that they've both got the same number of shells because they're both in that same period. Sodium would have an electron configuration of 281, 3 shells, and chlorine 287, also 3 shells. We move on to 2.2, and we've got here sodium reacting with chlorine atoms to produce sodium chloride. Describe what happens when a sodium atom reacts with a chlorine atom. Write about electron transfer in your answer. So we need to really be specific to get these marks. So we have got sodium loses 1 electron. You get 1 mark for specifying that sodium loses electrons, but you get the second mark for identifying that it's 1 electron. For the second 2 marks, it's still also really quite brief. We know that the chlorine gains that 1 electron. Now, 1 for identifying that it's gaining electrons, but the second mark is for really recognising that it's 1 that it needs to gain because it's group 7, and because it says that you've got to write about electron transfer in your answer, you've got to make it clear that chlorine is gaining the electron that the sodium has lost. And moving on to 2.3, where we're looking at energetics and the energy profile diagram. So this one is worth 2 marks. And the first really important piece of information is that it's an exothermic reaction. Now, an exothermic reaction occurs where energy is lost to the surroundings. So the temperature of the surroundings goes up. Now that means that the products will have less energy than the reactants did. By drawing that line lower, you get the first mark. The second mark is for recognising that there is an activation energy. So you get the mark for adding the hump, for showing the line going up and then coming back down as it goes from reactants to products.